Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Technically Human podcast. So, this podcast episode is going to be a little bit different. One of the things that I have been thinking about quite a bit more is I always go back and forth between this, should I go back to school? And I don't know why, because I spent well over 16 years in the college setting. And my husband's, no, don't do that. You have to work. You have to go to school. It doesn't make sense. And I'm so freaking interested in diving deeper. And one of the things that's happening is when I do coaching with individuals about their career, is we talk so much more about life and things within them and not just the career. That's the face of it. And I started to think, oh, maybe I need to go into a mental health counseling or some kind of counseling that focuses on career and jobs and things like that. And I was like, I need to stop. I just need to stop. But I don't know how many of you out there listening are similar or have this experience. There's a stability and a structure and this, I think, somewhat of a safety and belonging in education from my perspective. And so I think that's why I gravitate back to it. And I thought to myself, you know what? I don't have to be in that. I can create that for myself. So while I haven't formally created it and it's not going to be perfectly, here's the curriculum and all of this, it's learn as I go, right? And make sure that I'm able to be curious and tweak and change it also. It doesn't have to be like this is what I laid out for this time frame and you have to follow exactly what it is, especially because I don't know the topic in depth that I'm going into. So, what I have uncovered, and this is so intriguing to me, and I'm going to start putting together some visuals for it as well, is that there are really three layers when we think about, I don't even know if I want to call it career development. I don't know what the whole framework is, but when we think about career overall, that there is this outer layer. So, visualize this there's this outer layer. And this is where you would have any kind of job search advice. So, this outer layer, let's call it level one, is job search advice. So, it incorporates things like your resume, your LinkedIn profile, interviewing, networking, building relationships, salary negotiations. It answers questions like, how do I get a job? So, really, that very basic level, that job search advice. And you can get that a lot of different places, right? And sometimes it's interesting because you'll listen to people, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever it is, and they can be opposing views or perspectives on what you should do, opposing advice. So you really have to figure out which one is going to work the best for you. And so that is that outer layer. And I've done that for so long in helping individuals. And what I have done is I put that into my Compass community for free. So if you're listening and that's something that you're interested in, it is absolutely free. We just wrapped up the monthly Q&A that we have. We also answer questions in the community. And then earlier this month, we had a live training and I pick a topic and share information. There's also a career resource vault in there that is chock full of this different advice and these different pieces of information to help you with your resume, with your LinkedIn, with all of these different things. And it's continuing to evolve and be built as we go. There's a ton of stuff in there right now, but as I get questions, I can add and continue to grow that and share that with individuals. So that's that outer layer is that job search advice. And then what I'm starting to see is when you go into this next layer deep is more of that career coaching. And a lot of people don't even go to this. So as we get further into the core of this framework, and I'll have to figure out a name for it, there's probably going to be less and less people that are going to think about this, have conversations about this, and really dive into it. And in a way, that's awesome. In a way, it's unfortunate because we spend so many waking hours of our lives involved in our career. But there's also thousands upon thousands and millions of people in this world who, to them, they may see it as a job and not so much their career and wanting to develop their career and move forward. And that's absolutely fine, right? We need a mix of all kinds of people and all kinds of perspectives. So we have a smaller group that goes into this next level in called career coaching. And this is where people are seeking direction. They may talk a little bit more about their strengths. What are they really good at? And some things that have changed over time is focusing on your strengths and continuing to make sure that you have that as a strength versus letting it slip. Whereas many decades ago, we would talk about, oh, these are our strengths, these are our weaknesses, and we would have to pick a weakness and try to make that into a strength. Don't let the things that you're good at fall to the wayside while you're trying to add something else. And sometimes you're already so good at things. Why are you trying to add something else when you can improve on what you're good at? Goals, the conversation around goals. There's a lot of people out there who don't have goals. And a lot of times when you have goals, that helps you to make forward progress. The other thing is when you have goals written down and you're looking at them and working to achieve them, that is going to help you as well. Career transitions may be another topic that people talk about in coaching. So I have done, if you see this video, you see my little buddy here. She pops up. Hi, Iris. We talk about career transitions. And a lot of times I will work with clients through an outplacement agency or through going through a layoff or going through where they want to get promoted. Or also individuals who no longer want to be in leadership, no longer want to be a people manager, and they want to go back to that individual contributor role. And what do those transitions look like, and how do they make those as successful as possible? And decision making also goes in here. So I also do career coaching and work with individuals who are trying to decide. I've been at this place for a long time. There's uncertainty, which there is everywhere at most times. Should I get myself prepared? Should I post internally? Should I post externally? What does the landscape look like? Trying to make these decisions and helping them and supporting them and asking the right questions. So, a lot of times, career coaching is what should I do next? And it doesn't always mean jumping the ship that you're on and going somewhere else. There could be a lot of different reasons or places that you're going to go next. And that doesn't mean that you're going to leave the job that you're in either. A lot of times that's the case, but that doesn't always have to be. So we have job search advice as this outer realm. We go a little bit closer in, it's career coaching. And then what I've recently discovered, and this is the core of this framework, is called career psychology. This is where I feel like I've hit the gold mine, and this is where I am going to be spending a lot of my time and my own research and my own education and things like that. So I've been digging into career psychology recently because I think many of us have been solving career challenges with those outer layers, and more so probably the job search advice with resumes, interviews, things like that. When the real challenge, and I've started to learn this as more career coaching I've gotten into, we start to get into the problem isn't your resume. The problem isn't your LinkedIn profile. It's something a lot deeper. And I feel like this has happened with myself as I've gotten in. So I want to talk a little bit more about what this career psychology looks like. And I'm going to be digging in over future solo episodes about what I learn and what I find out about this, because it's always a journey of learning, right? And digging in and starting to uncover what does this mean and how can it help individuals? And I'm not saying I'm trying to help individuals so that they pay me. That would be nice if that makes sense. Yes. Also, how can I help individuals like those who are in my free community, like those who are listening to this podcast, like those who are watching the YouTube video, all of those types of things. So, when I talk about this core of this framework, this career psychology, I don't have to think, is this even a framework or is it just a model? Or, gosh, there's so many different synonyms for that, right? But if we talk about this core and its career psychology, this lends to the question of why do I think, feel, and behave this way in my career? So, one of the things, whether it's, I don't know if it's today, maybe another episode we get into, is thinking about from an industrial organizational psychology perspective, which I did my master's in, is how does this interact with that? because it's not the exact same thing, but there has to be a lot of overlapping in that. Because some of the things that we would talk about in career psychology is identity. How many individuals do you know that have linked their career to who they are? How many individuals have you heard of that if they get laid off or they get fired, they have no idea what to do and they sink to really scary levels of depression because that is their whole life and that is who they have become. When we think about career psychology, we think about the meaning of our career. What's behind that? A lot of different cultures have meaning behind the type of role that you move into. Motivation. What is your motivation? Confidence. What does confidence look like for you? Self-efficacy, adaptability. What are our values and how do they play into the career that we have? One of the things that I've looked at with some of my students in the past is we've looked really a lot at values. And one of the connections I like when thinking about what are some of your most important values is how do you connect that to your career? I've done exercises with career clients where we've looked at what are some of the top values you have and what are the careers that you're looking for? What are the types of roles that you're looking for or the companies that you're looking for? And is that a match? Or if it's not 100% match, is it a pretty high match? If it's not, what are you doing? Does this make sense? Is that the right move for you? And another thing in career psychology is thinking about our purpose and where do we want to go and what do we want to do? So when we think about the outer level of job search advice, that's how people get jobs. The career coaching may be more of how people choose careers. In this, in my quest, I'll call it a quest. Maybe I'll think of some fun name for it, like a game. I want to look at why we think, why we feel, and why we behave the way we do around work and digging more into that psychology. So, some of the questions I've gotten from people is, should I leave my job? Should I apply for this job? Should I go back to school? Heck, how many times have I asked myself these same questions over and over, even more recently, right? Underneath a lot of this, and that originally this episode was going to be about confidence and self-trust. And I decided I need to back up and I need to talk about why I'm even starting to go into that. So that might be a future episode. But underneath, a lot of people are thinking, am I good enough? What if I fail? What if I'm not successful? What if I disappoint people? What if I choose something wrong? And we have all of these things going on inside of us, which is such a deeper level and such a deeper layer to really start to peel apart that onion and start to explore. So, resume advice can really help you, interview advice, all of those things are helpful and beneficial. But sometimes the obstacle for people is not that tactical, tangible thing. Sometimes it's more that inner piece that's fear, that maybe identity, your confidence, you're burnt out, you're uncertain, those types of things that you need to get to. And one of the things that has happened with myself and that I've noticed with others too, as I start to have conversations, not necessarily on social media, because a lot of times on social media, you're seeing the good side, right? And not people are not sharing as much of the bad side or the challenging side, which I am glad and grateful that more people are sharing that. And they're not looking for empathy or not always support and things like that, but authenticity, I would say. What I'm noticing is that career-wise, there's a lot of people who have these incredible accomplishments, advanced degrees, like myself, leadership experience, like myself. I would say, like myself, for incredible accomplishments too. And they're still struggling with things like their worth, their belief in themselves. They're doubting themselves. They don't know that they have clarity. They're not fully confident or they don't feel fully confident. They're challenged when they have to make decisions. And that's just so fascinating to me. And it's mind-boggling too, because how many people, and I've talked to several coaches, and this is outside of even career coaches. And they're like, you are amazing. Look at all these things that you've done. And there still feels like there's a piece that you're trying to find that missing puzzle, that puzzle piece too. And how do we connect the dots put that, what is that piece? And it's kind of chasing what is that piece. And what ends up happening, and what I've seen for myself too, is we get so down the rabbit hole of trying to chase what that piece is that we forget the whole rest of the puzzle over here, right? Puzzle can be just as beautiful when you don't have the full piece, or if it's a little fuzzy, right? Or if it's some of the cardboard's ripped off that puzzle piece. It doesn't have to be perfect. And maybe that is one of the things that we dig into with career psychology too, is digging into that idea of perfectionism from a career and personal perspective and how that impacts individuals. So I'm noticing that's not just me, which makes me feel good, but it also is like, why? And how do we move forward from this space and what can we do? So, getting very curious about this. So, one of the things that I've always valued is learning. Everyone knows I'm a lifelong learner. If you've followed me for any amount of time or if you've listened to any of these podcast episodes to date, if you have not, hello, I'm Tracy. I'm a lifelong learner. And I've started to dig more and more into the concept of career psychology. And again, it's not because I'm looking for another degree or certification. I have even spent times where I'm having to pull myself back from thinking I'm looking for this missing piece of the puzzle, that I have to get this official degree or certification or be called something specific, and constantly smacking my own hand to say, you don't need it. You're allowed to get curious on your own terms and what that looks like. And so that's what I've decided to do. So, in this episode, I'm going to start off. We're going to go through some of the things that I found, and I have on my screen that I'm going to be reading through some things that I found about career psychology. I may even start to pull up some things while I'm talking, looking up what are others defining as career psychology. And in future episodes, I will likely be a lot more prepared in diving into some actual articles, peer-reviewed articles, and things like that to support what I'm talking about as well. So, if we think about career psychology, I did pull up one item about what it is. I'm going to see if I can pull up a couple more so that I'm not just looking at one source of truth here. It's funny because you look at career psychology and a lot of things are like, oh, here's careers in psychology. It's nope, a little bit different there. All right, so let's start off. One of the definitions I found is career psychology is the study of how people think, feel, and behave in relation to their work and careers. And it looks at things like I mentioned before: identity, motivation, meaning, confidence, career decisions, adaptability, fulfillment, and success. Okay, let me look at a couple more here. That was actually from ChatGPT. And we know that's not necessarily a source of truth. We want to get some validated resources for that as well. I'm going to look at psychology.iresearchnet.com. This is career psychology as a subfield of industrial organizational psychology. Okay. Investigates the psychological dynamics involved in career selection, career development, career progression, and career adaptation over an individual's professional lifespan. The discipline synthesizes insights from personality development and social psychology to analyze how personal attributes, environmental influences, and cognitive processes shape vocational behaviors. The American Psychological Association is telling me there's this book by Walsh, Flores, Hartung, and Leong, and this is from 2023. This looks interesting. I'm going to look up, see if I can get this cheaper. It's $99.99. Career Psychology Models, Concepts, and Counseling for Meaningful Employment. And this says career psychology identifies and reports the theory, science, and practice of career counseling, serving as the foundation for career planning, occupational exploration, career decision making, vocational choice, job entry, work adjustment, and retirement. So, one of the other things that I'm going to look at is what are the studies behind career psychology and provide validated sources. So we can start to bite off just the beginning pieces of this. So the founding theories, if you're going to start exploring career psychology publicly, I'd focus on a handful of foundational theories rather than trying to learn everything. Thank you. Most modern psychology builds on a relatively small set of influential frameworks. So they give me 3 buckets of founding theories and then some modern theories and emerging theories, chaos theories. I'm going to share these first 3 that are founding theories, and over time, maybe we'll dig into these a little bit more. But the first one said Frank Parsons' trait and factor theory from 1909. And the big idea is that people make better career decisions when they understand themselves, their occupation, and the relationship between the two. This is essentially the foundation of career counseling. Many assessments and career matching tools trace their roots back to Parsons. So the takeaway is that career success isn't random, self-awareness matters. And this is so important. This is the idea for me too, and how I'm going to link this back is this filters into that middle section of when I was talking about the layers, the career coaching. We start to get more into it's not just I need a job, even though a lot of people do, especially after layoff. It's what is the right type of job? What is the right organization for me? And those types of things, and figuring out more of those matches so that you are hopefully more successful than I just need a job, get a job, go in the door, and not really know a whole lot. So this really takes you back to understanding yourself, having that self-awareness, even going back to what are the values that you hold dear to you, what's important to you, and looking at the role and are those things that align with your experience, your skills, your strengths, your values, all of those types of things, as well as the organization itself, and figuring out how do we make the best match there. So having that awareness and digging deeper into that. So the second of the founding theories that's mentioned here is Holland's theory of vocational choice. And afterwards, it says RIASEC. RIASEC, it looks. People tend to prefer work environments that fit their interests and personality. So the 6 types are realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, conventional. And I do know that I have taken that, yes, through, I'm trying to think, we'll have to look at what are some of these assessments that have looked at that. And they look at typically your top 3 or where they fit on the wheel and how they connect. So it says research consistently supports the idea that people experience greater satisfaction when there's alignment between who they are and where they work. So this goes back to the first one as well. And sometimes we're unhappy because we're in a poor fit environment, not because we're incapable. So even if you are a badass at the role that you have, if you're not in the right type of environment and that's not a good fit for you, it's probably going to make you unhappy. Your morale is going to sink, and you have to make sure that you think about that too. All right, I'm going to look. Let me see. Tell you the third one, and then we'll look up this last thing I want to look up here. So the third foundational theory is Donald Super's lifespan life space theory. And this is a career is not a single decision. It's a lifelong process of developing and expressing our self-concept. Super argued that careers evolve as we evolve. He also emphasized the many roles we play throughout life and not just a worker. And the takeaway is you don't find yourself once, you continually redefine yourself. And this theory aligns with my own journey from corporate leader to professor to entrepreneur and those types of things. So yes, we change and evolve over time. And just because we wanted to be X when we were little doesn't mean that we need to want that our entire life. Or I know my mom had told me she wanted to be a nurse when she was young. The first sight of blood, she was like, I'm out. So different things can end up impacting what that career is. Or maybe we spend time in a career and then we decide we want to shift and do something different, or life ends up throwing that at us. So before we wrap up on this specific episode, I want to look at that RIASEC. What are common assessments that use this? Strong interest inventory, self-directed search, ONET interest profiler, my next move, Some versions of Clifton Strengths and MBTI application, they're not Holland assessments, but they might use some of the questions related to that. This is really cool because then I'm able to see the founding theories. I'll pull up, see if I can find some more articles around that. And then maybe we switch to some of the other theories and some of the other pieces, but at least give a foundation for how this even came about. So the only year that it shows here so far for the foundation was 1909. And thinking about what even was going on in the world at that time too, and why were we starting to look at these kinds of things, and why was it so interesting. And I even think back to in time, like even 1909, like people were working because they had to make a living, right? And so did the whole self-awareness, did that come into play, or the fit or things like that? It seems like that would be way farther down in time, past like in the human relations movement versus some of those earlier time frames. So I'm interested to dig into like why did this even come up and how widespread was it? When did it start to maybe more evolve into some of the things it is today, and thinking about the popularity of some of the assessments and things like that. So I am going to wrap up for this episode today. So this is you seeing me get super curious. And let me go ahead for the next solo episode. Let me pull together some more information about some of the foundational theories and those pieces related to career psychology. And I'll take you on this journey with me. And we'll look into what does this look like? How does this relate to things that we're seeing in today's world and with maybe you or other people in organizations, people who are maybe leaders in your organization or in your industry, or even people that you guide if you're a leader and you're helping employees? And let's see how this plays in, and would love to share that with you. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day. I'll catch you on the next episode.